9 top Negro athletes meet with Cassius Clay to discuss his anti-draft stand. They include Bill Russell, Lou Alcindor, and former pro footballer Jimmy Brown. Says Brown after the meeting, the champ is sincere in his religious beliefs. He believes in his religion, and his stand is based wholly on that.
This is what Muhammad Ali is fighting. He said, why am I going over there to do to them what's done to me in my country every single day?
Anti-war demonstrators protest U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War.
You had these marches and these rallies where Americans were deeply disappointed in the government and disapproved of our actions in Vietnam.
In America, black people are treated very much as the Vietnamese people. The police in our community occupy our area, our community, as a foreign troop occupies territory.
Oh, I've been hit so many times, I'm immune to it.
What is the makeup of the community here? What would be the reaction of the community to a Negro family moving in?
Oh, I don't think they'd like it. They're very clannish in a way because they want their own people to be on the spot here, not nobody else.
There had been racial upheaval, civil disorders, starting in 1964 in Harlem. They were outside of the boundaries of the institutional civil rights movement.
A 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew is clamped on fully 1/3 of Newark. While Newark struggles to restore peace and order, the racial bitterness spreads to 4 nearby suburban towns.
This was a cry from African Americans who really had not seen many benefits coming from the Civil Rights Act or even the Voting Rights Act.
I mean, it's interesting that the South has always had a rigidity, has always had a reluctance to even follow the law when it came to black people.
Hollywood's big night. For the 36th time, the world's amusement capital recognizes the year's top artists and achievements with the bestowal of the coveted Oscars.
The winner is Sidney Poitier.
All these black people are starting to star in their own films and television shows, and they're showing and telling stories from their perspective.
Was Mr. Colbert ever in this greenhouse, say last night about midnight?
There was a time when I could have had you shot.
Wait a minute. You all are moving too fast. Just wait, even though that always means never.
You had a whole group of white working class people, for the most part, who were beginning to think that the Democratic Party was abandoning them.
The approval numbers about MLK and about the civil rights movement were at an all-time low among white Americans.
I do plan to stir up trouble in some of the big cities in our country this summer. But my stirring up trouble will be righteous trouble to bring about nonviolent solutions. There is no doubt about the despair in the Negro community, and I don't think we deal with that despair by doing nothing. We've got to have outlets through which people can channelize their legitimate discontent.
I feel that Martin Luther King is the biggest enemy that the Negroes have in America today. In fact, he is an enemy to the United States by leading innocent and uninformed Negroes to the slaughter pen.
By the time Dr. King was talking about poverty,
people are forced to live in the most inhuman situations because of their poverty.
4 days of rioting, looting, and arson rocked the city of Detroit. in the worst outbreak of urban racial violence this year.
Whites who may have been sympathetic with black demands for civil rights and voting rights now believe that they had gone too far and it was too disruptive, it was too violent.
Talking about militarism, giving the Beyond Vietnam speech in New York.
That kind of militarism is something that Martin Luther King Jr. had no patience for. King says, I'm not going to the Democratic Party because Vietnamese baby has the same value as a black or white or any other baby. They said, does that mean you're outside the two-party system? Absolutely, Martin says. Angela Davis ran for vice president on the Communist Party in the 1960s. Clifton DeBerry became a very important figure in that party.
Mr. DeBerry, could you tell me why you want to run for president, why you are running for president?
Then it's no accident that you're going to end up with independent candidates outside of the two-party system trying to raise issues that have to do with their condition.
When we call for the withdrawal of troops from all foreign soil, that is, withdrawal of American troops from all foreign soil, we also called for the civil rights movement to break the support of the Democratic and Republican parties.
And some of those voices are radical and militant. Some of them are deeply conservative. A lot of them are mainstream. We need to know all of those voices. That's part of the history of a great people. It's hard to find a folk who have been so viciously treated and yet still decide not to form black versions of the Ku Klux Klan.
By the time he was marching with sanitation workers in Memphis, demanding that they as workers have the right and ability to collectively organize for themselves and demand what they are owed, that was too far. If you want to talk about a white child and a black child sitting on the hill of justice together and us not seeing color, then I'm all for it. But as soon as you want to have as much as I have, then you've gone too far. Then you're a threat to my power and my comfort and the status quo. So we will kill you, and then we will erase the truth of your existence in order to make sure that nobody else dares to do what you do.
To talk about the threats that what would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers. Well, I don't know what will happen now. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Martin Luther King dedicated his life to love and to justice between fellow human beings. He died in the cause of that effort. For those of you who are black and are tempted to be filled with hatred and mistrust of the injustice of such an act against all white people, I would only say that I can also feel in my own heart the same kind of feeling. I had a member of my family killed, but he was killed by a white man. But we have to make an effort in the United States. We have to make an effort to understand, to get beyond or go beyond these rather difficult times.
The estimated 125,000 Manhattan marchers include students, housewives, beatnik poets, doctors, businessmen, teachers, priests, and nuns. Makeup and costumes were bizarre.
I think Johnson's decision not to run in '68 was based largely on the Vietnam War. Whites in the South, but also whites in the North, who were beginning to believe that Black Americans were getting benefits that whites didn't get, an affirmative action that Johnson initiated, that he decided, he thought, not to tear the country apart any further, and he would not run.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
And Vice President Humphrey won the nomination.
When Ronald Reagan campaigned for governor last autumn, he found that the most successful phrase in his speech was always the mess at Berkeley. The argument in orthodox American politics isn't between the right and the left, it's between the right and the far right. In California, the far right are winning.
Reagan became governor of California. As governor of California, he took staunch positions against college demonstrators at Berkeley who were protesting not only the war, but also the dominant middle class white culture.
Do you and your friends, whether or not you have votes, have any sense of being disfranchised in this country because the left is so little represented in elected assemblies?
Well, not only because of that, we feel we're disenfranchised in the sense that the majority of the American people really have no control over the politicians who are put into office. The Democratic and Republican Party both are controlled by the rich corporate military establishment, and we really never have any say. We're just allowed every 4 years to choose between two people they've picked, and in this sense we feel disenfranchised. Though in America there still are the basic civil liberties, the freedom of speech, freedom of press, and we intend to use these to try to get power in the hands of working people, Negro people, and ourselves, of course.
In your heart you know he's right. No cold water, there's no cold water, there's no cold water all the way. Just raise a note to cast your vote for Mr. USA. Cold water!
By 1964, Reagan supported the candidacy, the Republican candidacy of Barry Goldwater from Arizona, who was not only an economic conservative. Goldwater had voted against the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
A self-proclaimed conservative, in his view, the choice lay between the excessive spread of federal power and the freedom of the individual citizen.
I promise you that I will...
In 1964, this country would not have survived a Republican administration, which was Barry Goldwater, a stone-cold racist. The Republican Party made a decision in the 1950s, 1960s. They said, we do not want Negroes. That was the language in this party. They made a decision
to be the opposite of LBJ, to be a white man who will stay on script. And that's absolutely how we end up with a Nixon.